lyrical name that tune. This is a way old song. He's got arms like legs. He's got hands on his feet. He's got a nose like a donut. Has a tendency to overeat. Anybody say he's got arms like legs? You guys know this song? Anybody? Come on. He's got hands on his feet. He's got a nose like a donut. Nothing? James Taylor, Gorilla.
Oh,
Anyone know this song? Everyone loves James Taylor, but that's one of my favorite songs he's ever done. I actually think the gorilla is a metaphor for his depression,
oh.
but that's an interpretation coming from me. That's a fun song. And if you don't know it, for God's sakes, put you in a good mood. Does no one even have an inkling in their head now that I've said the name? Does anyone know this song?
The name, I probably had the album and it might have been on.
Yeah, well, the album's called Gorilla.
Oh, okay.
And it's got Sarah Maria on it and How Sweet It Is and a whole bunch
A
of
long
like,
time ago. I haven't listened
yeah,
like
it
that.
was my sister. It was my sister's album, and she got me started. I was always trying to impress my sister, so I was listening to that album early, and it's one of my early albums in my brain. All right. Well, does anyone remember last week? Does anyone remember what we even talked about? You don't have to. This isn't a shaming test, but it was about rhythm, remember?
And
We
you
actually
said
talked about the sensations, but in order to set up the whole thing, I had to talk about each sensation, the four core sensations as the ongoing thing that, to help remember that is one of the mind body students' approach, trying to think about if you can adapt sensations, you can adapt poses, because sensations in one form or another. So when you do an actual pose, right, a particular pose, those are just doorways to certain sensations, right? And the idea, and when I was trying to figure out how to conceptualize it, if you can have certain sensations, then you all happening, you've got in various combinations. That's what the yoga poses do. They just change gravity in relationship to those sensations. And remember, it's grounding. I'm not even going to call Amanda out again. Grounding, expansion, rhythm. I mean, balance and rhythm. They don't necessarily have to go in any particular order, but we talked about those. And then in some ways, they all kind of, although maybe grounding is the one you need to, if there was a door opener or a linchpin one, it might be grounding, but in a way, they're all related to each other. So even to pull them apart is actually a little bit strange. It's kind of like, you know, that they all kind of, in a way, we used to joke, the teachers that would do the trainings in person would joke, well, basically we're only teaching one sensation, right? And the question is, what's that sensation, right? So how does this tie into gorillas? Well, so there's a point at which, I want to finish off. Here's another line. Because remember, what I was trying to say last time was that the way our consciousness is actually wired, right? And I think this is really cool. We tend to hear things have more meaning and flow better when they're in better rhythm. Right? So like if I were to now be completely all over the place without any rhythm, like you'd have a harder time gleaning the meaning of any sentence. When you start thinking about how we communicate, obviously speech happens in patterns, right? There's rhythms to it. There's things we're looking for that reset. But if you think about it, we're constantly connecting things in rhythm with rhythm. And our consciousness is wired that way. It's not a coincidence that, free verse poetry didn't happen until way after there are all sorts of types of poetry, iambic pentameter, and all these things, because and songs tend to go in rhythm, and we are always like an orchestra. If they completely play out of rhythm, it's just like it's really hard to listen to. It's maybe not a song unless that itself becomes the statement in the song, right? Like when you have no form in a painting at all, or no any kind of feeling of movement that's connected, it becomes very hard. It becomes doodling as opposed to a painting, right? And there are actually paintings that can be just doodling, but we tend to look for patterns, right? So rhythm is actually one of the fundamental ways that we connect and find patterns that keep us grounded within the enveloping abyss. There was no patterns. If it's a great way to narrow things down into recognizable patterns, right? And that's literally fundamental to how I think our consciousness actually functions, right? The same thing is true with the yoga pose. So there are a couple lines. Again, I'm going again to try to unpack rhythm differently. So rhythm isn't in, this is like a one sentence paragraph in near the end of the book. Rhythm is an invisible connector, and it actually connects things. If I could give you the 5 words of a sentence, and if there's no, and I just kind of say them spaced between with time and kind of with different, you wouldn't know that they made any cohesive meaning, right? Like it would just be words uttered, not words connected, right? So that's another, this is kind of finishing up the rhythm binds movements, sounds, frequencies into cohesion, into something that makes more sense for our consciousness. Now, that's part of what happens in a yoga pose, right? Is that it also connects movements. When you think about, probably the greatest mind-body innovation, mind-body integration innovation, it's probably music. I think I said that last week, that we're able to hear something from something our eyes can't perceive, and translate it into movement right away, like, and into coordinated movement. We call that dancing, right? So it's one of those things that, like, it's so many of the things of how we perceive are connected to rhythm. So back to the gorilla, right? There's a point in your yoga practice as a student where, and this is a really hard transition that a lot of people have a hard time making. If you start trying to practice on your own, and you just are trying to imitate like a gorilla, right? Like the way you have the instructions in your head, like, oh, you do this, you do this, you do this, and your mind is kind of like going to it. That lacks rhythm. The great thing about being able to, that the pose has to become, one of the ways it becomes your own pose is you start being able to integrate what seem to be disconnected instructions into movement patterns that are a little bit more on rhythm. But when you're just trying to remember stuff, you know, unless you're remembering a song, your memory doesn't have much rhythm in it, right? So you start, so as some of you are beginning to move around and going back and forth, right? You start to like find home. Like think about it, after a big, really calamitous event, often you rock back and forth. You do these things to come home, right? But when you're doing a yoga pose, one of the ways that the yoga pose becomes a whole is that you let it be connected by rhythm, which is one of the weaknesses, I would say, of Iyengar yoga is be with so much precision and knowledge of the individual poses, there's a tendency to lose the rhythm between the movements, right? So if you remember last week, I was talking about, well, there's rhythm even when things slow down, right? So have you noticed, like, might be one of your favorite songs, but you can sit there and listen, you know exactly when the first word comes into the song, or the first, like, the drum beat that pivots, or where the guitar solo is. There's a sense of time that comes in rhythm, right? So the difference between just lifting up and lifting up with rhythm, right? When you and so ask yourself, when you do this, and if I just lift up, right? This is how I was taught to transfer in PT, which is the physical action, right? But if you integrate rhythm into the movement, right? Something happens to the overall quality of the sensation. So again, to repeat, so right now I'm kind of trying to get my spine bouncing around a little bit so I get space in my spine again. We do this every time. So, because I know my yoga poses will feel lighter, but also the rhythm will be going through my whole body if my spine isn't compressed. So remember, because in order for a rhythm to get to you, it has to come through empty space, right? There are all these things that are actually much more um, symbiotic. The empty space, as you know, that's a big thing in my poses, right? And the way I teach is I want you to be moving and swimming through empty space, right? I want you not just moving your arm. This is like what Western civilization in particular has thought movement is just about what you control. No, movement is about swimming, right? It's about opening the pores of your skin, the grounding of your spine, right? The movement of your muscles, whatever you're moving, right? It's about having all of them move more in connected unity, not as an idea. Remember, your ideas by themselves don't have rhythm in them. Mental energy, unless it's following something, is dry, right? It's dry energy, right? It's not nearly as alive. And it's not a weakness that it's dry, it's just its nature, right? And take your legs wide a little bit. So we're doing all this movement. We haven't fully centered yet because the more awake energy, a lot of times, but when I'm practicing on my own, I do kind of move around first before I center and start doing stuff. Often when I'm practicing, when I don't center, I just start doing poses. I mix it up, right? I mix it up so I can pick up different things. So my legs are wide now, and I'm just kind of being a little bit more sensual in the movement, right? Being sensual may be like moving through the cosmic soup without sharp edges, right? But still being smooth, right? And there's a place where rhythm really helps, right? Really helps for you to glide, right? There are people, for whatever reason, I'm imagining seeing people hockey skating, right? And there are people that just skate through sheer power, or you can see it in a jogger too. Some people are just running, just working their body, right? And then some people just like kind of glide as they jog, right? So in a yoga pose, you're trying to figure out how to how to rhythmically glide. And the part of your brain that has to activate in order to let their things be a little bit more tuned to rhythm are really important. Bethany, believe it or not, teach dog pose. I do have to get this call. It's an important call. Hold on.
He said, believe it or not, because he called me earlier and threatened that he was going to do that. He was going to threaten that I was going to have to teach in the middle of class. All right, so it sounds like we're coming into uh, dog pose. So letting your rhythm kind of slow back towards your midline until you're a little more settled, a little more still, kind of making your way towards Tadasana. Lovely. And we'll move into a dog pose if you've got a table in front of you. Lovely. If you can put your hands on the tops of your thighs closer to your knees, spreading, pardon, the fingers wide. Yeah, lovely. And then extending the palm toward into the earth and lengthening the spine. There, you're back. We're here lengthening our spines, Matthew.
In relationship to broadening the palm.
Yeah, deep
But
beginning.
that was a doctor's office calling, so I really need to get that call, right? But can you, were you, and then asking them to do it in rhythm of the two?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but there would be another place where how do you connect actions?
Mhm.
Right? Right. So, like, I can just spread my hand hard and fast, right?
Mhm.
But if I want to activate more of the spaces in my body, so remember, graceful movement through the empty spaces is going to be one of the keys to rhythm, right? And so if I place my hands and I start to, and I'm sliding back in my chair, so I'm moving a little bit. So already I've started the rhythm. I didn't mean to, right? But as I start to activate and I lift my chest at the same time, right? I could just do it like it's just independent actions, which is not always wrong. Or I can try to connect the actions such that as soon as I start broadening my palm, I start to gently lift my chest. And when I do it kind of together, like they're growing out of each other, that's when I start to feel more of my legs and my whole body. Because I've actually activated and connected it with the connector of rhythm, right? And so you do that, and then you kind of we're not just doing dog pose now, we're doing kind of upward facing dog kind of too. But then when you do it like that, right, and you do it with arm rhythm, don't you kind of want to inhale as your chest is lifting? So the rhythm itself starts to unfold parts of the action, right? And then I can add things. But so like, for example, when I add, and I'm doing that, and I add broadening across my collarbone, I find that when I horizontally extend in a pose, it throws me a little bit out of rhythm, right? But it actually increases my sense of wholeness. So for me, I've got to really work to make horizontal action be part of the rhythm and then release. Now, that might not be your experience, but for me, like my mind forgets to horizontally extend pretty easily. So at first, it's got to be like, oh, wait, I got to broaden too. So now I'm going to put my hands on the table and release. I'm going to put my hands on the table again. I'm going to start to broaden the palms and broaden across the collarbones as I lift my chest. So when that happened, did anyone start to feel the inner edge of their shoulder blades come slightly in and down just a little bit? Could you feel it just happened there? Yeah. So all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, you mean the rhythm is writing the pose? Yeah, just like you know the next beat. You know the next beat. And a yoga pose is also a song, right? And so you go and you start to do that and you feel that connection. And once you start feeling that lower edge of your shoulder blade, does anyone kind of feel it light up the legs? And you're going like, oh, that must be why those damn why dog pose is a freaking pose. Because somehow the work in the arms reveal awareness in the legs. Good, and then release. One of the things about doing versions of dog pose in a chair that's harder for me at least, and maybe some of you don't have this, is that, and I actually think it's hard for a traditional student too, that's more able-bodied, more traditionally abled. Um, I think Bethany, would you say this to be the case? Would you say that it's hard to do when you come up in dog pose, it's hard to do the legs before the arms? Or
Yeah.
do you, yeah, like, so it's
Yeah, the
really hard.
legs, or the arms feed the legs. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's hard to do dog pose from the legs to the arms. You'd have to already be in it. There are all these things that would, but so when you're here and you start to like rhythmically ground the hands, broaden the palms, broaden the collarbones, lift the chest, drop the shoulder blades. So usually what I do here is that when that all happens, I can hit down through my sitting bones a little bit better. And then I kind of want to exhale and extend my spine even more. And then when I add extend from the inner groin to the inner knee, down to the inner heel, I have a really hard time doing that on rhythm with the rest of the pose. Right? Like, then release. So maybe you don't. I think you probably do kind of like me. And so it's like, can I add that extra layer? And can I do it on rhythm? And at what point of the pose would the extension of the inner groin to the inner knee down to the inner heel happen in rhythm with the rest of the pose? So now I'm just leaning forward on my table, right? And I'm kind of without having all the complication. I'm trying to go, okay, at what point can I rhythmically connect extending from the inner groin to the inner knee? Isn't it if I push down a little bit and as I drop my shoulder blades a little bit, isn't that the time when I could extend from the inner groin to the inner knee to the inner heel? Can you see can you do what I'm talking about right now? It's like that's probably when it's natural. Are you kind of with me here? Yeah, yes, no. I can't see any thumbs, right? Thumbs, right. So that means like that's the place that I wasn't even aware of that was happening. Again, my mind is the last one to the happening, right? And isn't it great that you don't have to think about every dance move? Because if you had to think about every dance move, you'd be out of rhythm, right? So this is where I know I'm going to be able to do it. So now I'm going to go back to the rest of the dance moves, right? Of this pose. Here go my hands. As soon as I start to broaden the palms and connect it to my chest and my shoulder blades go down, that's when I'm going to extend from the inner groin to the inner heel down to the inner knee to the inner heel. And then I'm going to use my inhalation to expand and my exhalation not just to extend out the top of my head, but to extend out through my legs. Good. And then release. So yoga poses, when they're done, are basically trying to break the Humpty Dumpty rule, right? When you break Humpty Dumpty, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. When you're learning a yoga pose, you're trying to learn how to have it break down into parts but you're still trying to put it together even stronger and better than it was before, right? Stronger in the broken places. That's Hemingway again, right? So as you are aware of all the complexity of the happening, can you be aware of the happening without having it lose rhythm? That's a really good question. And the answer is yes. That's why you practice. Try it again. Hands on the table. He's got hands like feet. He's got arms like feet. Wait, he's got arms like legs. He's got hands on his feet. He's got a nose like a donut. He's got a tendency to overeat. So like I start to hear songs when I'm doing poses sometimes. So I remember not to take it too seriously, right? So then I'm gonna broaden the palms, lift the chest. There's the parts, the shoulder blades drop. My sitting bones extend from the inner groin to the inner knee. Watch my inhale, watch my exhale. So there I've observed it. Remember, you're trying to become the pure observer. Only the pure observer can be aware of the parts without breaking the rhythm. Right? Okay, now try it again. Do it all on rhythm now. Let it unfold itself as you're watching it. Use your breath. You get to repose after every breath. So like, and then release. Like the inhale like adds, if your pose were a river and the river wasn't crashing too fast, was more rhythmically going past a part of the bend, right? The inhale actually increases by adding space. It ends up, let's metaphorically try to say it, increases the amount of water. Okay. And then the exhale speeds up the current. Whew, right? And then it speeds up the current, but allows you to extend the pose into the emptiness, right? Try it again. You know, this class would not have been about dog pose had I not had to jump off and throw Bethany a hot potato. Right? Okay, so now your palms, the chest, to broaden the shoulder blades, the legs. Inhale it, increase the amount of water. Exhale, increase the current so you can go beyond the limits of your body. Good, and then release. So this idea that when do you stop just following instructions like a gorilla, aping it like a gorilla? When does it become your own? There's a tendency, I think, in what I would call free to be you and me, overly barfy conceptions of yoga, that means that whatever you do in a yoga pose is actually perfect. It's not perfect, right? There's always improvement, right? And so it's the balance between not having the poses be your own and still having progress to them, right? Inhale out. So down. So now um inhale up and just let the inhale help the arms go up, or do one arm, or just do your shoulders, or just broaden across your collarbones, whatever, right? And then back down. I'm going to do one arm at a time. So now I'm going to break it apart. I'm going to take my arm wide. I'm going to bring my shoulder blade back to the shoulder girdle. I'm going to open my palm. I'm going to extend from the center of my chest to the center of my elbow, through the center of my wrist. I'm going to let that connection help the skin on my fingers get bigger in space. And then I'm going to breathe. And then release. Let's see if I can do it the same on the other side. See if I can hold my arm here. All right. So now I could just do it with breath, or I could start adding the complexity, right? The parts of it, shoulder blade back, through the elbow, through the wrist, from the center of my chest. Use that to expand my fingertips, reground the place between the shoulder, back to the shoulder girdle to extend down to my fingers and broaden my palms. Good, and then release. So now I know from having done the pose a lot, and you probably felt it too, when I just inhale and take my arms wide, there's a feeling of flying, and I can kind of feel my whole body that way, right? And that's a good thing. But when I do it with the precision, right, with all the parts, I feel my sitting bones better and my down to my legs better. But it's not on rhythm, not in the same way, right? All right, so I'm going to do it both ways here and get all the parts so I can feel my whole body. Now, the trick is, can you combine both? Right? Can you know the way like the actual precision and the less rhythmic awareness can light up your whole body, and then the rhythm of the movement make it more graceful. So I'm going to do it one at a time. I'm going to use my breath, going to use the precision. I'm going to do both. I'm going to go back down. Do it again. Use my breath. Use the precision. Of course, I'm not using my breath because I'm freaking talking. Right? Back down. All the while, the observer deep behind my eyes is watching the effect in my legs, right? As I increase the rhythm. If I just throw it out here, my legs don't do anything, right? I'm watching every movement to reveal the whole. So right now I'm focusing inward more, right? I'm gonna rock forward because I'm having to grip in my neck and shoulders too much. So I'm gonna use a little bit of rocking. I'm gonna keep it light again. Then I'm gonna come back into the balance point on rhythm, inhale and extend, right? Now I can tell in what I've been doing that all of a sudden because I know the parts of the pose, I was doing all that and I was clenching this empty space right here. I was like not letting my whole head and neck be free, which was making it so I wasn't as in the room. And I was doing that to stay on balance, right? So it's not like I'm stupid, but this time I'm going to try to do all the same things and keep this space more open so I can feel the space behind me more and underneath my arms. Because remember, we're swimming in a cosmic soup, right? So I'm going to try to do it all. Ooh. In a way, part of my crunching of my neck, I can't undo. And then go, because it is keeping me safe. So then instead of cursing that, I have to go, okay. Because most of you don't have to do what I have to do because you can ground your sitting bones more directly than I can and ground your feet, right? But I have to compensate, right? So I'm going to try to go, okay. Going to let it compensate, but I'm not going to let it block other parts of my pose. Well, that was better. I just did it better. How do I know I did it better? Because I'm not just gorilling my poses. I'm actually feeling my own poses. Right? I'm actually really watching as I'm doing. Now I'm going to use more rhythm, a little bit more speed. Ooh, that makes me feel like, God, I can kind of, can't you almost feel like I almost feel like I could take off. Except now I'm getting in love with that part. I'm making one of my arms really sore. So I have to stop, right? So I need to now, because of now you're gonna do it with me because I'm the one teaching. Like I need to get my arms back together because I kind of did something, right? So I'm gonna bring, this is the kind of thing I'm gonna bring my forearms down. When you practice on your own, you get to take care of your own body, right? So I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna ground because I can tell I kind of did a little bit too much a little bit. So I'm gonna ground here, get a really good base, and I'm gonna drop my shoulder blades, lift my sternum, broaden across my collarbones, hit down through, balance my head over my neck, extend my neck, so the space between my ears and my shoulders are more full. And I'm gonna breathe. So I'm showing, I was just out here and got a little bit away and had to grip up here too much. So I'm showing my body right after that it's safe. And that I don't have to wear that strain. I can let it go. And if I extend my spine in this pose, I'm getting close to something powerful. So like all of a sudden, I can feel dog pose. And I'm breathing. Now I'm going to sit like this with my spine really leading the pose. I'm going to feel my sitting bones. As I broaden across my sacrum, I'm going to extend my other set of arms out my shoulders and take my arms wide again without taking my arms wide again. And I'm breathing. Good, and then release. Inhale up, exhale, revolve, take the other hand behind you, or do some version of a twist, right? You don't even have to do it this overt, because now we're adding a dynamic energy. So I want to lengthen my spine. To lengthen my spine, I want to hit down through my sitting bones, raise up through my chest, and twist. Good, and then release. I can't help it because I did that with rhythm and kind of sensually because that's how I've taught myself to practice, right? And then I'm going to go the other way, right? Grab, down, up, broaden across the chest, inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Right? Now, when I see somebody winning twist, like how far can I get? Can I get down in there and lever the shit out of it, right? I always go, that's too bad. You can do that once in a while. But now I try to do all these, keep the awareness of the parts and do it all even more on rhythm. Inhale up, exhale, turn, ground, turn, get whatever you get. Lift on the collarbones, have it all happen in rhythm. There's no winning. There's just happening. I don't know about you, but have you ever danced better because you're being willful when you're dancing? I doubt it. Rhythm and your will, because your will comes from your mind more, right? It tends to be out of rhythm. It just squeezes stuff. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, try to do it all on rhythm. Soon as I get rhythm, I feel my legs more. Soon as my will that's helping some of the movements takes a back seat, not the lead, then the rhythm nourishes the pose. Good, and then release. Up and down. Sometimes I used to do this to my son when he was little. I used to drive him crazy. I used to try to, I'd keep my brakes off and I'd be going to get something and I'd try to like lift my chest and move, propel. My hands are on my foot pedals and I would propel my wheelchair forward by lifting my chest, but not touching my wheels, right? So I'd go a little bit down the room at once and he'd be like, Dad, just push your wheels, right? I used to love doing that. But there's a point where you can get it going. And then, so I'm moving towards the screen now by hopping my spine. It's hard to do that in rehearse though. So now I'm going away from trying to get it to go away, right? Now what's funny is that I can go forward much better with rhythm, right? Going back is way harder to do on rhythm. So why am I doing something so goofy? Because why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't you figure out how to use your spine? Because when I start to realize how to move my whole body with my spine, when I start changing gravity this way and that way, I start to actually be able to do it. All right. So if I want to like start a rhythm of bringing one knee forward and the other knee back, all of a sudden, because I like show how my spine is dynamic and can move my whole body, all of a sudden my rhythm changes, right? And all of a sudden the way I'm moving changes and it includes a little bit more of my will. Good, and then go back over this way, over the backwards. And then come forward. And then I lap. I could try to bring my chair forward, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna like, without moving my chair forward, and let my spine know that it's dynamic. So now when I go back over my chair, I let it be sensually going back over my chair because I'm using rhythm and dynamic energy, right? And then back to center. So now I'm going to come forward and try to use this sense of dynamic spine and rhythm to come forward a little bit more, do a twist that actually is dynamic. I'm more forward, like I'm hopping around, but I'm on rhythm. So this would be qualitatively, energetically, a little bit more like Marichasan 1 or a revolved triangle pose that's, or Parsvakonasana that is but you're trying to do it on rhythm, right? And then release. I'm remembering the fact that my movement of my spine can be dynamic. So when I come down farther into the pose, and instead of my lift of my chest just being willful, I come and I turn like it's dynamic and willful, and I turn, and I just got snap, crackle, and pop way deeper in my spine than the other twist because my will followed rhythm as opposed to just crank. Good, and then release. Come back to center. With that one, I can feel like I just twisted in a smaller room, so I'm gonna remember to be in a larger room. So I'm gonna jump around a little bit again. All right, and I can remember that, hey, wait, I can actually do this and actually have my wheelchair almost move because my spine is somehow directing my actions, right? Like what? My spine can move my whole wheelchair? You're damn right it can. Are you freaking kidding me? Spines rock, right? Literally. Do a little powwow dance, right? Like pop it around a little bit and going like, wait. And then instead of just being good, now I'm going to do it with a little bit more rhythm. Like, wait, whoa, I'm going to go, I could make that a little bit different. Could make that a little bit different. Oh, sit in the center. With all that extra like spinal whatever, right? Just sit still. Take a few breaths. Here's a question for your Shavasana. Is there rhythm in Shavasana? And if you say there is, how would you? I don't know if I would say there is, but if I did, it's not rhythm normal. So you know how like when you plop a stone, a pebble, 'cause a stone seems too big, into still water, let's say a pond, and the rings start going out, right? And then there's a point at which the energy of the plop and the rings going out dissipate and just seamlessly go back to stillness at the edges, right? So could there be a sense of rhythm at the edges where it goes back to stillness, right? So a sitting in the stillness, you tend to think, wait, what's my relationship? In fact, your breath is still moving you, so there's always your heart is still pumping and there's things moving. How is it that they dissipate into the stillness? So we're not doing Shavasana yet. We're sitting in stillness, wondering about rhythm. So like I just noticed that there's a little bit of grip at the base of my neck and how I was sitting. My head was not balanced as much over my neck. So instead of just correcting it, like like a huge bull in a china shop, which I just tried to demonstrate to you and screwed up my whole stillness, right? I'm going to try to bring my head back in rhythm. So as I move to a line, I keep the stillness better because I move in rhythm. I'm doing like a micro adjustment between my shoulder blades because of my scoliosis, they're a little bit off balance. And so I'm going to adjust it. I'm going to do it in a way that is graceful on rhythm, not a correction, but a seamless happening. So that when you hit the place now where you think you got it, where it's about as good as the receiving's going to bet, really, I'm going to shift my position a little bit. I'm going to try to keep that stillness and really let the chair hold me up. If you're being congruent with the stillness of Shavasana, your lips will come together, your teeth will go farther apart, slightly apart. You will relax your belly and relax your throat. There is a rhythm to the instructions of Shavasana. They just start happening. I can totally not feel my forehead releasing and all these things. And I think, how did they know? Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes again. Close them if you want. Open them again. As you open them again, bring your spine into the world again. So it's funny. So I've been having a lot of very low abdominal spasms. And so right when I thought, my mind thought I was quintessentially in as almost as good as I could be in Shavasana there. Apparently, like my very low abdomen wasn't quite ready to have that much stillness. Okay? So it started spasming, like kind of pulling me around a little bit. And it would be like the mind might want to go, damn it, right? Like, come on, let me have that little bit of space, right? Let me just have it. But really, so I'm watching my very low abdomen going like, wait, too much, too fast. Not ready for this much stillness there, right? And rather than like going like, God dang it, like that's when you have to take the part of your body and lead it by the hand like it's a small child and go, it's okay, right? You can be there. You can get nourished there. And did it stop my abdominal spasming? No, right? It didn't fix it, but it then included it. So now if I wanted to fix it, I could press and give reference there and get it to calm down. Oh, that feels good, right? Could have done that during Shavasana. But I also want to honor the fact that not every part of your body can obey where your mind wants to be. Sometimes that energy of the stillness can be too much for parts of your body, parts of your brain, right? Right. And so you end up trying to figure out how to go, okay, I get you. It's a little windy for you there in that stillness. Okay. Right. Stuff like that become part of Shavasana, not impediments to Shavasana. Right. All right, everybody. I'll stay on and listen to some comments, or reactions or whatever. And if you don't, if you want it, you should listen to his, he's got arms like legs, got hands on his feet. He's got a nose like a donut. He's got a tendency to overeat. One of the headlines is, but he rides my Eldorado, baby, when he drives to town. He don't eat meat. All these things. All right.